The 1960s in America was a time of immense change. The air was thick with cultural revolution. The civil rights movement was reshaping the nation. The Vietnam War divided public opinion, and new sounds from rock and roll, jazz, and folk music became the soundtrack for a generation. California, in particular, seemed to glow with a sense of freedom and possibility. But while the light of peace and love shone brightly, a shadow was beginning to form in the darkness. A voice was emerging, one that would soon adopt a name that would terrorize the nation: the Zodiac. Our story begins on a cold December 20th, 1968, on Lake Herman Road in Benito. Two teenagers, 17-year-old David Arthur Faraday and 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen, were on their first date, parked in a secluded lover's lane. Suddenly, another car pulled up beside them. The driver got out and approached their vehicle, armed with a pistol. He fired at the car, shattering the window. The teenagers scrambled to escape. Betty Lou managed to get out and run. But David, as he was exiting the vehicle, was shot in the head. The attacker then turned his attention to the fleeing girl, shooting her 5 times in the back. When police arrived, they found a horrific scene. David Faraday was still breathing, but would tragically die on the way to the hospital. Betty Lou Jensen was pronounced dead at the scene. There were no witnesses, no immediate suspects, and very few clues left behind. The local police were left baffled by the senseless brutality of the attack. While this is officially considered the first confirmed crime of the Zodiac killer, some investigators and researchers believe his reign of terror might have started even earlier. They point to a case from 2 years prior, in 1966, the murder of Sherry Jo Bates, a college student in Riverside, California. She was found brutally murdered in an alleyway near her campus library. A month later, a typed confession letter was sent to the police in the local newspaper, containing details only the killer would know. The letter was signed, but not with the name Zodiac. The writing style and the taunting nature of the message, however, bear a striking resemblance to the letters the Zodiac would later send. Was this his first act? A trial run before he adopted his infamous persona. The Riverside Police Department never officially linked the cases, and the murder of Sherry Jo Bates remains its own unsolved mystery, a chilling prelude to the horrors that were to come. For now, let's return to 1968. The double murder on Lake Herman Road was just the beginning, a single drop in what would become a river of bloodshed. This is the bone-chilling, twisted story and deep dive into the Zodiac case. Fast forward 7 months, the year had rolled over to 1969. It was the 4th of July weekend. A young couple, 19-year-old Michael Mago and 22-year-old Darlene Farron, decided to go for a drive. Darlene was a popular waitress at a local restaurant where she was well liked by everyone. It was likely there that she met Michael. Despite being married, Darlene had agreed to go out with him that night. They drove to Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, a spot similar to the one where David and Betty Lou had met their fate. As they sat in their car in the parking lot, another vehicle pulled in and parked behind them, its headlights shining directly into their car, blinding Tim. The other driver got out, flashlight in hand, and walked towards their passenger side door. Thinking it was a police officer, Michael reached for his ID. Without a word, the man raised a gun and opened fire. He emptied his pistol into the car, hitting both Michael and Darlene multiple times. Then, he calmly walked back to his own car and drove away. Michael, despite being shot in the face, neck, and chest, was still conscious. He heard the attacker's car stop and then return. The killer came back to the window and fired 2 more shots at each of them, before finally leaving for good. Darlene had been hit 9 times. Michael, in agony, managed to lean on the horn to signal for help. When paramedics arrived, Darlene was still alive but had lost a massive amount of blood. She was pronounced dead upon arrival at the Kaiser Foundation Hospital. Miraculously, Michael Mago survived the vicious attempt on his life. He was able to give police a description of the attacker: a short, heavy-set white male with a large face. But his survival came with a heavy price. He was now the only living witness to the Zodiac's brutality. Less than an hour after the shooting, the Vallejo Police Department received a phone call. A man's calm, monotone voice spoke to the dispatcher. He said, "I want to report a murder." "No, a double murder. They are 2 miles east of Columbus Parkway. They were in a brown car." He then went on to claim responsibility for the attack at Blue Rock Springs and, chillingly, for the murders of the 2 kids last year, referring to David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. The call was traced to a payphone just a few blocks from the police department and, interestingly, very close to Darlene Ferrin's home. The killer had not only struck again, but was now directly taunting the police, claiming his victims and setting the stage for a terrifying game of cat and mouse. He was no longer just a shadow in the darkness. He was giving himself a voice. Just a few weeks later, on July 31st, 1969, the game escalated. 3 different newspapers: the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald each received a handwritten letter. The letters were nearly identical. In them, the writer claimed responsibility for the shootings at Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs. He provided details that only the killer could have known, proving his claims were legitimate. But there was something else. Something that would become his trademark. Each letter included one part of a 3-part cipher, a coded message that he claimed contained his identity. He then issued a chilling demand: publish the cipher on the front page of the newspapers, or he would cruise around all weekend killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again, until I end up with 12 people over the weekend. The newspapers, faced with an unprecedented threat, complied. The Bay Area was now officially in the grip of a serial killer, one who craved attention and delighted in puzzles. At the end of his letter to the Vallejo Times-Herald, he signed off for the first time with the symbol that would become synonymous with fear: a circle with a cross through it. The Zodiac had officially named himself. The publication of the ciphers set off a frenzy. Codebreakers, both amateur and professional, from all over the country began working tirelessly to crack the message. The FBI's cryptanalysis unit and the NSA were stumped. It seemed like an unbreakable code. But just over a week later, the impossible happened. A high school history teacher from Salinas, California, Donald Hardin, and his wife Betty managed to solve it. They had spent their weekend poring over the symbols, trying different combinations. The decoded message wasn't a confession or a name, but something far more disturbing. It was a rambling, misspelled tirade from the killer. He wrote, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all." He went on to talk about collecting slaves for the afterlife and declared that he would not give them his name because they would try to slow down or stop his collection of slaves. The message revealed a deeply disturbed and dangerously arrogant mind. The killer saw his victims not as people, but as trophies for his own twisted version of heaven. The solution to the cipher didn't bring the police any closer to his identity, but it gave the entire world a terrifying glimpse into the psyche of the Zodiac. The fear was no longer just about the physical danger he posed. It was about the chilling, calculated evil behind the acts. The Bay Area held its breath, wondering where and when the Zodiac would strike next. The summer of love was truly over. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the Zodiac case. The story is far from over, and the terror he inflicted would only grow. If you found this interesting, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for part 2, where we'll cover his most brazen attacks and the letters that baffled the FBI for decades. Stay safe, and see you in the next one.